When a government decides to change how society works, the process is usually sterile. Signatures in quiet rooms, neatly printed documents, press conferences. But real change on the ground is loud. It is chaotic, physical, and often fought out in the mud. Take the Bhartiya Nyaya Sanhita, or the BNS Bill. Introduced as a decolonizing overhaul of India's legal system, the goal was to modernize the courts by wiping away the remnants of British rule with a brand new set of codes. This visualization shows the actual text of the new bill compared to the old colonial laws. When you look at the data, there is an 83% direct overlap between the old Indian Penal Code and the new BNS. The name changed, but the machinery inside remained almost exactly the same. If passing a new law or slapping a fresh label on the cover doesn't actually evolve an institution, what does? To answer that, we have to look far away from the parliament, toward a football pitch in Kolkata. East Bengal FC provides the ultimate case study in how an organization actually reinvents itself. Its history is a record of friction, marginalization, and grassroots survival. This chart shows the top of the 2025-26 Indian Super League standings. Under head coach Oscar Bruzon, East Bengal sits right at the summit. After a grueling season, they are exactly one game away from ending a 22-year drought for a national top-flight title. But look at the margin. They are perfectly tied on points with their arch rivals, Mohun Bagan. The only thing keeping East Bengal ahead is a razor-thin goal difference of 18 compared to Bagan's 13. To grasp the psychological gravity of this impending final match, you have to understand how this club clawed its way to existence from absolute zero. In 1920s Kolkata, society was sharply divided by geography and class. You had the affluent, established locals known as Gotis, and the working-class immigrants crossing over from the eastern side of the region, known as Bengals. During a regional cup match, officials from the established Mohun Bagan club deliberately benched a star player simply because he was a Bengal immigrant. In direct retaliation, frustrated executives stormed out and formed their own club, East Bengal FC. Their identity was literal. They were societal outsiders demanding basic placement on the pitch. No government mandated their existence. They willed themselves into being purely out of spite and a demand for respect. Because Mohun Bagan had already claimed the mantle of India's national club by defeating British teams, East Bengal had to look past domestic borders. To prove their worth, they needed foreign scalps. In 1953, they became the first Indian team to tour Europe. In Moscow, playing in freezing Russian conditions with half the team completely barefoot, they fought the heavily favored Soviet Cup champions, Torpedo Moscow, to an astonishing 3-3 draw. That trend continued for decades. In 1970, they faced off against Iran's PAS club in the IFA Shield final. The Iranian champions were feared across Asia, boasting stars who would go on to win multiple Asian Cups. East Bengal beat them 1-0. These continental victories offered crucial geopolitical validation for a community of refugees seeking legitimacy. Winning on foreign soil proved their community was capable and worthy of global recognition. However, passion has a ceiling. By the time the 2003 ASEAN Cup campaign rolled around, head coach Subhash Balmik realized that relying solely on raw emotion was a failing strategy. The institution needed a structural overhaul. Balmik convinced the club sponsors to invest heavily in modern sports science. They brought in Kevin Jackson, a South African physical trainer, who implemented strict European-style fitness regimens. Over a brutal 6-week preseason camp, the players were pushed to their physical limits. The transformation worked. East Bengal emerged as the fittest football team in India, powering their way to a championship victory in Jakarta. East Bengal achieved peak modernization from the bottom up. Their success proved that genuine institutional change requires painful physical effort. Rebranding paperwork will only go so far. But the high of the early 2000s didn't last. Following their 2004 title, the club stalled. As Indian football entered the commercialized era of the Indian Super League, East Bengal failed to adapt its infrastructure, kicking off a 22-year drought. Meanwhile, the fan base itself was changing. The first-generation refugees who fought for survival were being replaced by modern fans who inherited the expectations of a legendary past without seeing the trophies to justify it. Legacy without continuous, active adaptation eventually becomes a burden. The sheer weight of East Bengal's history was beginning to suffocate the club. Which brings us back to today, the 2025-26 season. After an abysmal start, coach Oscar Brusen arrived and resurrected a dying campaign. He implemented a strict defensive organization that allowed striker Youssef Ezageri to lead the league with 10 goals. Now, standing on the edge of their final match against Interkashi, the math is simple. For the first time in decades, the squad controls its destiny. A win guarantees the title. You cannot legislate a legacy. Governments can issue decrees and rename laws to mandate a new identity, but paper is fragile. True institutional strength is forged in the mud of a rivalry, proven on the freezing pitches of Asia, and sustained by a community that simply refuses to fade away.